Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. My name is Jesse. We are approaching the 2 month mark of Tony Mansolino being the Baltimore Orioles manager. So I thought I would spend some time in this episode just talking a little bit about the Orioles under Tony Mansolino's regime to assess where the Orioles are at, to a little bit assess what Tony Mansolino has done for the team, and to more or less kind of assess his performance as manager, even though I'm not really going to be making a clear assessment of his managerial skills in this episode, but I will sort of be talking sort of broadly about what it seems like at least part of his influence has been. And then I will just talk a little bit about some of the factors that have contributed to more success under Tony Mansolino since Brandon Hyde was fired than when Brandon Hyde was manager. So, just sort of to start off for comparison, so when Brandon Hyde was fired, he left the team, as we all know, in shambles with a 15-28 record. They had a 348 winning percentage at that point in time. And since Tony Mansolino has taken over, the Orioles are now under his watch 24-21, which has now created a 40-49 total record for the Orioles. And under Tony Mansolino, the Orioles have a 533 winning percentage. That includes the win that happened earlier today with the Orioles beating the Atlanta Braves on Saturday in extra innings. So yeah, that upped Tony Mansolino's winning percentage or record to 24-21 with a 533 winning percentage. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through a little bit about where the Orioles are at, what Mansolino has done, and talk about some of the things that have contributed to the Orioles' improvements under Mansolino. And then we'll talk a little bit about, what is Mansolino, what is sort of just natural in a sense for the Orioles' progression, and that sort of thing. So, at the beginning of the year, one of the things I think is worth pointing out, that I think me and Eli did the sort of season preview, and we had sort of projected, of course, that the Orioles would at least be near playoff contention, somewhere in the high 80 to low 90 win rate, or win total. For the 2025 Baltimore Orioles. Of course, that has been derailed. Me and Eli both felt that the Orioles would get stronger as the team got healthier throughout the year. We sort of anticipated the Orioles would struggle a little bit out of the gate. Of course, not to the extent that the Orioles did struggle, but we did anticipate the Orioles would struggle a bit out of the gate and then get better as the season went on. One of the foundational reasons that we felt like that was going to happen was due to the health of this team. Now, before I get into who the Orioles have gotten back and gotten healthy in a way that, sort of makes my point here, I do want to acknowledge uh, my entire last episode where I talked about the sort of disastrous catching situation for the Orioles that has only gotten worse in the past few days since I spoke about it. The first news to come out was that Chadwick Trump was basically put on the injured list after an injury he experienced. So Gary Sanchez and Jacob Stallings was then brought onto the team to replace Trump. And today, Gary Sanchez went out with an injury. Now it's very unclear as to his status going forward, whether he's going to have to make a trip to the IL or whether it's going to be more of a day-to-day thing. But the even since a few days ago when the Orioles catching situation was pretty bad, Now it appears as if it's going to get much, much worse. So granted, I will say Jacob Stallings did have a big hit for the O's in extra innings. That really gave the O's had a one-run lead in extras, which, as we all know, with the runner starting on second base is really not sufficient. And Stallings really got a big hit to make it a three-run lead for the Orioles off a pretty good pitcher in Rafael Montero. So, you know, that is a little caveat to what I'm saying here, but overall, we don't expect Stallings to be much of a heavy hitter at the plate for the Orioles this coming year. And he might, if Gary Sanchez does make a trip to the IL, he might be on a regular basis, more or less the starting catcher for the Orioles. So we will see whether it comes to that, whether Gary Sanchez does have to go in the IL or not. So that is the caveat. The catching situation probably a little bit under Tony Mansolino has gotten worse. Adley, if I'm remembering correct, I don't think I'm missing any major injuries. Adley, even though he was not hitting well at all under Brandon Hyde, he was the catcher for the Orioles under Brandon Hyde. And so, with that, I guess more or less the catching situation going in the wrong direction under Mansolino, I'm going to talk about how the Orioles have improved health wise and how that has really significantly contributed to, the Orioles making significant improvements so far under Tony Mansolino. So, the first guy that the Orioles have gotten back, which has had a significant impact, is Colton Cowser, right? So he has been, since he's returned, he's already knocked a few home runs. He's been a power threat in sort of more or less the middle of the lineup for the Orioles, which the O's had been hoping for. If he had been healthy all year, potentially with that sort of production, he'd be in contention for a 30 home run season, as I sort of had, I think, made as one of my bolder predictions on the opening season preview episode. Now he did play a little bit under Brandon Hyde, but went out with injury very, very early on into his time when he made that ill-advised slide into first base. And since he's returned, the production's been good. Um, he's had some pretty big home runs for the Orioles, late inning, that kind of thing. And so Colton Cowser has been sort of inserted back into the lineup for the Orioles in a way that has been really, really encouraging. It also alleviates just a lot of the strain that had to be placed on the outfield because the Orioles were able to, um, sort of match up a little bit better. Now, the Orioles did have an injury to Tyler O'Neill and stuff like that. But overall, having Colton Cowser back in the lineup, it really does a lot for the Orioles in terms of their ability to sort of put guys in situations that are comfortable. I think the main beneficiary, even though you can't really see it reflected in his numbers, but the main beneficiary, uh, in some ways, is Cedric Mullins. Mullins, he started the year really great, struggled, sort of declined a bit, but you really take a lot of pressure off him by having Cowser in the lineup. And since so far this year for the O's, he's had a 770 OPS, which is very solid, and especially with his defense in the outfield, he's been an effective contributor and definitely been somebody who's been able to sort of help this team make improvements and sort of turn around under Tony Mansolino. So Cowser is the first one that I want to point out. And this the other big offensive player that uh, sort of I think can sort of fit into this health category a little bit is Gunnar Henderson. And the reason that I say that is because um, Henderson at the beginning of the year, he did start off the season on the injured list for the Orioles. He did come back pretty early in the year, but he did struggle for a while. So in the month of April, Gunnar Henderson ended the season with a six. I'm sorry, ended April with a 681 OPS. And then in May, he upped it to 748. Now, I think that a lot of that can be attributed to him sort of struggling at the beginning, coming off injury, getting, back and acquainted to seeing live major league pitching all the time, et cetera, et cetera. Now, um, in the last 30 games, Gunnar Henderson has an OPS in the ballpark of 850. And despite having only elevated his OPS to 800, he had an OPS of in the ballpark of 850, which is not exactly where he was at last year. I think he ended 2024 with an 893 OPS, if I'm remembering right. Um, so it's not exactly the same offensive production from Henderson, but definitely 850 is in the ballpark. 850 is, especially for a shortstop, a great OPS. And if you think about Gunnar Henderson, like, there's just been significant improvements for him offensively, and a lot of his continued success, he's just gotten stronger and stronger month by month throughout the season. As I said, he ended May with a 748 OPS. He ended June with a 799 OPS, and he's at 800 right now. So, um, although he might have, yeah, I think he dipped a little bit from that today. From he didn't have a great offensive day today, but in any case, right around 800 OPS, and a lot of that. So you know, especially with Gunnar Henderson last year for the Orioles, Gunnar Henderson was really the heart and the soul of the Orioles offense in a lot of ways, and the fact that he struggled so much at the beginning of the season really, really, especially when he struggled after coming off the injured list, that really manifested in the Orioles offense more broadly, really, really struggling. And granted, this offense is not stellar at this point in time. It sort of has its ups and downs, has some good days and it has some not good days. But overall, I think the improvement of Henderson has really made the offense look like a different team, and that has really his offensive improvements have really became more prevalent and more apparent since Tony Mansolino. Well, not exactly since Tony Mansolino, but he's steadily done better and better as the season's gone on. So Tony Mansolino has definitely been able to be the beneficiary of a better offensive Gunnar Henderson, a significantly better offensive Gunnar Henderson than Brandon Hyde sort of had at his disposal to start the season. Um, so Gunnar Henderson, I think, really, when we think about the health, when we think about the offense in general, we really can't. It's hard to understate Gunnar Henderson's impact on sort of that dynamic for the Orioles offense. And then more on the pitching side, the other two guys that I wanted to kind of point out, who I think have not had as significant impacts as Kowser and Henderson, but one of them has been a starting pitcher for us in Trevor Rogers. And so far, Trevor Rogers, he has only pitched 22 innings for the O's. He's only pitched 4 games. But so far, he's done really, really well. He has a .86 WHIP. And Trevor Rogers only came back for the Orioles after um, Mansolino had taken over and after Hyde had been fired. So Brandon Hyde didn't have Trevor Rogers at all. He's put four really good starts together for the Orioles. I'll just run through them real quick. The first one he pitched stood out to a lot of Oriole fans when he pitched against Boston. The O's ended up winning the game 2-1, but he pitched six and a third, lights out, shutout baseball. And then he had a rough start a little bit against the Tampa Bay Rays. This was really the disaster game for the Orioles. He went two and a thirds. He gave up only three earned runs. But that was the disaster game because that was the game where the O's had the 8-0 lead and then ended up losing 12-8. Um, After that, though, he pitched eight shutout innings, getting the win against the Texas Rangers. Really, really impressive start there. And then again, he pitched against the Texas Rangers in a wild game where he didn't get a decision, but he pitched five and a third innings of two-run baseball. So two out of the four starts have been really, really stellar. One of the starts was decent, and then the final start was not good, but not so bad that we lost the game just from that start alone, even though we did end up losing the game. So, yeah, so the addition of Trevor Rogers to the starting rotation has been really, really helpful for the Orioles as well. And then this is sort of a reliever who I think has had more minimal impact. But Andrew Kittredge returning to the Orioles as well. Now, granted, the Orioles bullpen overall, even though there have been moments where it has not really gone well, but overall, the Orioles bullpen hasn't been an issue, but Kittredge has played a role for the bullpen so far since his return, and sort of immediately at the beginning, he was able to be used. I think they used him in a save situation, which was good. Now, more recently, he struggled a little bit more in the game against the Rays. He gave up a couple runs, even though that was already a blowout. Actually, in the last five games, other than that game against the Rays, he hasn't really given up anything. But yeah, he's still pitching to a 4.12 ERA in 19 innings. He averages very slightly more than a K per inning. And So Kittredge added to the bullpen has just given sort of the Orioles another option sort of back there. Now, the Orioles haven't had a lot to use or haven't been desperate for relievers or anything like that so far. But I think still, like, even with him rejoining and with him being a part of the team, it's definitely helpful. And there were moments in time where the Orioles had Matt Bowman, and guys like this on the Orioles. So Kittredge is definitely an upgrade relative to them. And when he's good, he could be really, really effective. Yeah, he's definitely nice and a good piece for the Orioles to have. My main thing is I think so far, in terms of the win-loss record, I think there were some critical moments where the O's asked him to like close a game because Felix had pitched a couple days in a row or something like that. So, and he managed to do so. So, there were some moments and times where he was really critical, but I think out of the three guys mentioned here, I think he's had a lesser impact, as you would expect from a reliever relative to two everyday position players and a starting pitcher. He's had a lesser impact on how the team has performed under Mansolino than the other three that I mentioned. So, yeah, those are kind of the health guys that we've gotten back. And then, just sort of wanted to talk about a couple other players, I think, that are worth mentioning that have really, really made significant improvements, during the time under Tony Mansolino, that have contributed to the Orioles' continued success. So, the first one, of course, I think, is kind of obvious, but Charlie Morton. Now, Eli did a whole episode on Charlie Morton, just the last episode. So, if you want more details on him, go listen to that episode. So I'm not really going to focus on him too much. But the other guy who has really turned it around, despite the start he had today, is Dean Kramer. So this really does, because of their improvements, it really does feel like a better starting rotation for the Orioles than it had been prior to that. Now, I think everybody can probably remember Dean Kramer got off to a really, really bad start for the Orioles in this year. He had a at the end of April, he had a 7.04 ERA. There wasn't it he had let's see, he had five starts in May, and three out of the five starts, he gave up five earned runs at least. So three out of the five starts, he gave up five earned runs. Um, so he ended May with a 7.04 ERA, which of course is disastrous. But in the month of June, he was able to no, I am wrong. I am wrong. Sorry. He ended April with a 7.04 ERA. And in the month of April, yeah, he had three out of five starts with allowing five or more earned runs. But then in the month of May, yeah, now I'm sort of on track. He was able to drag his ERA down from 7.04 to 4.70, which again is not stellar, but is definitely a significant improvement. And then he's been able to build even on that in June, and he's been able to drag his ERA down even further to 4.27. 427 for Dean Kramer is a little higher probably than we would like him to be. I think this is not counting his start today, so I'm not factoring that in. So his ERA is going to be a little higher than 427 because he didn't pitch well today. But overall, we've been seeing more what we've come to expect out of Dean Kramer. Now a four, a low, let's see, a four. Let's just assume he's at a 4.40 ERA right now. That's still a little higher than probably we would like over the course of the season for Kramer, but I'm not. I think that he is going to continue throughout the rest of the season to make improvements on that and to bring it down. Ideally, with a guy like Kramer, we can have him be a guy with an ERA in the high threes, right? Somewhere in the 350 to 375, 390 range, right? That's what would be a good situation for him in general. Um, and the ERA and the effectiveness on the mound is really only a part of his value. Another part of his value, of course, is just the amount of innings that he's able to throw every year. So historically, he's been right around the four ERA range, like slightly above four, 4.10, 4.12. But overall, I definitely think he's a guy that could have anywhere from a 3.5 to a 3.9 ERA. He could even lower it more than that. So he did pitch 125 innings in 2022. where he had a 3.23 ERA. Now that was a while ago. But at the same time, like I think he is capable of having an ERA that starts with a three. So we'll see where he ends up for this year. But definitely he's made really, really good improvements and adjustments. We had sort of dissected him on this podcast a little bit and what some of the issues were. It seems like he's made the proper adjustments that he's needed to. And yeah, the results so far are showing. And if he just keeps sort of pitching like this and pitching slightly better as the season continues, um, that's exactly kind of what we would normally expect and need from him. And we'll sort of like get over, the really, really bad start for him at the beginning of the year. So, um, yeah, so basically, this sort of all brings me back to, sort of what I think about Tony Mansolino so far. Um, so don't get me wrong, 24 and 21, it's 45 games in total. It's a really, really small sample size, right? So when you're thinking about managers, or even baseball teams, right? You can't really make an assessment, a real good assessment of a major league manager, um, over such a short period of time, right? Excuse me. You really can't make, yeah, a good assessment of a major league manager over a short period of time. With that said, um, I think that um, you know, if we're thinking about how much credit does he deserve for the turnaround, I would say probably not a lot. Now, granted, there's nothing else really that other than the Orioles having a 750 winning percentage, which really was not realistic. And I'm joking and exaggerating with that, but even a winning percentage in the sixes or something like that was probably not a realistic expectation. So I don't really expect for you know I I guess the basic point is there are managerial decisions he makes, similar to the decisions that Brandon Hyde made, that I disagree with. So I'm not going to get into like the specifics, but there are times where he makes moves where I'm like, I have significant questions or wonder about that. But that's not really, even that is not really the entirety of what a manager should be assessed on. Because of course, major league managers are going to have their reasons for making particular moves and decisions. Um, so, uh, as I say that, I think about the Buck Showalter Zach Britton ordeal against the Blue Jays, and uh, yeah, I don't know what the reasons were for that. I'm kind of exaggerating, because I actually do remember, the reasons he pointed out and stuff like that. But anyway, point is, like I'm not I can't be at all upset with the 533 winning percentage. There's nothing really that has happened substantively that I can be like, "Oh, Mansolino didn't handle this well. Mansolino, this record should be higher. The O's blew this game and, like the game against the Rays, right? Like I'm not pinning that where we blew the 8-0 lead, right? I'm not pinning that on Tony Mansolino, for instance, right? So overall, if you're a major league manager and you're inheriting a team that's 15 and 28 and you get them to play above 500 baseball, that's a win, right? That's really, really, that's great. And that's a win. So I really don't have a lot of criticisms of Tony Mansolino. Whether I think that, in order for him to significantly have a chance to be in contention for the manager, I think he's going in the off season. I think he's going to have to play and manage these guys at a significantly higher than 500 pace, especially with the reinforcements that the Orioles are expecting to return, especially to the starting rotation, Grayson Rodriguez, Kyle Bradish. So um, I think that 500 the rest of the way for Tony Mansolino, even though that will have accomplished the job in sort of stabilizing the team. Um, like I think it might not be enough for him to be in consideration for manager next year. I think the Orioles would have to play at a clip close to, sort of his sort of to a playoff, on pace for like a playoff berth clip, in order for the Orioles to, or, average, be on a 90 win, pace, um, you know, under his time. Now, you could sort of like slice and dice the numbers a little bit. If the Orioles from this point forward, play at a 90 win pace, right? Mansolino might have a good case for himself, right? The big caveat to that is Mike Elias, right? So if Mike Elias gets fired in the offseason and David Rubenstein decides to go in a different direction, Mansolino will almost assuredly be gone as well, right? So if there's a new regime that's running the organization, Mansolino probably will not be sticking around. So even no matter what his success is, right, the new GM will probably bring in the manager they want, right? So the discussion about how well the Orioles do the rest of the way and is this enough for Mansolino to keep his job might be premature, if Mike Elias does end up getting fired in the offseason, right? So, um, assuming, or let's say for a second that Mike Elias does not get fired, right? um, you know, I think that Mansolino would have to do better than 500 the rest of the way in order for the Orioles to consider him for a managerial role long term. I think if he just sort of keeps this team at 500, despite Michael Eyes being appreciative of the efforts and Rubenstein being appreciative of the efforts, um, I think that still might not be enough for him to remain as manager for the Orioles going forward. I think that Mansolino probably has an uphill battle in making his case to remain the manager long term. And I think that, in order for him to be able to have a chance to make that case, he's going to have to do something really, really remarkable with this team in order to be able to make that case. So, I do think, there is sort of further assessment that is needed. I don't think it's fair to judge Mansolino based on, his winning percentage so far or this small sample size. Even at the end of the year, I don't think it will be fair to assess him fully as a manager, even if, no matter how he does, even if he does really well, if he doesn't do well, it won't really be a fair assessment, even at that point in time. But just sort of how baseball works, it's not always fair. And if a guy gets promoted to the majors, for a spot start, even if that guy throws, a shutout baseball game, 9 innings, and gives up 3 hits and no runs, even that, right? It's not like, well, you earned yourself another start necessarily, right? Sometimes it could be that. But if you come up for a spot start because you want to skip one guy's, spot in the rotation because they need some extra rest or something, but then you're planning to send that guy back down after the spot start, even if he pitched 9 shutout innings, that might not be enough to save him. So it's not always about fairness, unfortunately, in Major League Baseball. So, if we were about being fair and giving Mansolino his full opportunity to be assessed as a major league manager, you would at least give him next year, right? Like let him go to spring training, start, implement sort of his blueprint, right? If not a couple years, right? If you want it to be fair, but that's not really how things work. So unfortunately for him, he's going to be assessed in a within a sample size that is really not exactly fair. And in order for him, I think, to survive as manager, he's really going to have to do something stellar with this team. Overall, though, I think that you have to be happy with how things have gone for the Orioles under Tony Mansolino. I mean, stabilizing this, really, really dismal. I was going to say pathetic, but it's a little bit of an overused word, I think, describing baseball teams, but a really, really dismal baseball team when Brandon Hyde was managing. Um, the fact that Mansolino has come in and at least, you know, played a little bit above 500 baseball, or oversaw the guys play a little bit over 500 baseball in really bad circumstances, really bad conditions. Club morale was really, really low, etc. I do think there is some credit that, is uh, deserved to him for that. Again, I don't think it was necessarily all him. I don't think if Buck Britton had been made the manager that it would have been significantly different in terms of the record at this point for this team. Um, but overall, I think you have to be happy about the move. You have to be happy about how things have gone since the move in general. Um, and then I think also you just sort of have to figure out, okay, where are we going from here? The Orioles have this difficult sort of decision to make at the trade deadline. I think it's being overhyped a little bit in terms of the difficulty in the direction that it's going to go. But Elias has said that, they're still assessing the team to make a decision about what's going to happen at the deadline. With that said, I do think, of course, it's fair to say that Mansolino has done a good job at stabilizing the team and sort of at least, it seems to have turned around the morale a little bit, um, and to sort of give us a little bit of a foundation to work with going forward into the rest of the season, into the off season, etc. So I do think there is some credit that is owed there, especially coming into, as I said, a really really bad situation with this team. So anyway, we will keep talking about Tony Mansolino as things continue, as things go further. But yeah, especially with his 2 month mark coming up, I just sort of wanted to check in and just sort of take a step back, see how he's done, talk a little bit about what's been going on with him, and yeah, where the Orioles are headed going forward. So. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Please follow the show, give us a 5-star rating and a review. We have a YouTube channel where you can watch us on there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video. If you have any thoughts on the show, feel free to comment with any thoughts. If you want to comment on the YouTube videos, I should clarify, with any thoughts. If you want to contact the show, feel free to email us, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at The Warehouse Pod. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been The Warehouse Podcast. My name is Jesse, and go O's.